lot of veterans today who are also very confused by all of this bipartisan outrage.
Well, good thing we have a military lawyer.
The question is whether that boat was disabled or whether it was destroyed. If it was destroyed, how are there still live people clinging to it? And if it was only disabled, let me just finish the point.
When, Biden or Obama drone striked, the only thing that needed to happen was John Kirby would go on TV and say, oh, we made a mistake, we're learning from it. And nobody batted an eye. And yet now this has become the biggest,
It's
story,
actually not true that no one...
On drug traffickers, when the average American looks at this and thinks, oh, Donald Trump is actually
what I would say to the average
border.
Trump voter, a Washington Post report that claimed that Hegseth gave an order to, quote, kill everybody. And tonight, Hegseth and the White House are shifting responsibility to Admiral Mitch Bradley.
Hello, everybody. Guys, we got Batya the Brainless and the Stepford wife today. The dumbest duo team up to humiliate themselves. Let's get into this segment and we'll talk about it.
War crimes and whether Pete Hegseth committed one. The Pentagon strikes on alleged boats in the Caribbean. They are raising serious alarms from both sides of the aisle tonight. Despite a debate about whether the administration has the authority to even strike the boats, 22 of them have been sunk. More than 80 people killed in those strikes. And now the reports seem to indicate that one of those strikes left no survivors. And a follow-up strike or a double tap was ordered to kill everyone on board that craft. Both Republicans and Democrats are arguing that at best, a second strike is illegal, and at worst, it's a war crime.
If it was as if the article said, that is a violation of the law of war. When people want to surrender, you don't kill them.
If that reporting is true, it's a clear violation of the DOD's own laws of war, as well as international laws. So this rises to the level of a war crime.
Obviously, if that occurred, that would be very serious, and I agree that would be an illegal act.
If the facts are as have been alleged, that there was a second strike specifically to kill the survivors in the water, that's a stone-cold war crime. It's also murder.
The White House and the Pentagon have denied a Washington Post report that claimed that Hegseth gave an order to, quote, kill everybody. And tonight, Hegseth and the White House are shifting responsibility to Admiral Mitch Bradley. He's the commander of U.S. Special Operations. Now, Hegseth says that he stands by that admiral's combat decisions, while the White House calls them lawful. Joining us in our fifth seat tonight is Margaret Donovan. She is a former Army JAG. Margaret, I want to start with you because there is this dispute about who gave the order. First of all, what do you make of the fact that tonight they seem to be pointing the finger pretty directly at this admiral and naming him, both at the White House podium and Pete Hegseth in this tweet in his defense, but really saying that he's responsible for this?
Yeah, I think that is a great indication of an administration who knows that something has gone terribly wrong here. I think that people are finally recognizing, and that's why you see we did that intro with all of these different leaders and lawmakers saying that this is a stone-cold war crime. This is so basic to everybody who has served in the military and who has trained on the law of war and the law of armed conflict, that it is a war crime, that it's no surprise that the administration will be trying to shift the blame. I think that the choice to sort of pin this on Admiral Bradley is an interesting one, but not unexpected, because Secretary Hegseth is not somebody who has exactly leadership qualities, right? He's actually largely unqualified to be in that position. And so, of course, his natural instinct would likely be to say, something has gone wrong, let me find somebody to blame this on. Now, that's not to absolve Admiral Bradley of anything. If the facts really have played out the way that it is being reported, he absolutely had a duty not to follow an unlawful order if it was Secretary Hegseth's order.
Yeah, I mean, Batya, this kind of puts the whole unlawful order thing in a different context, because now there's a real question about whether there was an unlawful order and who gave it.
Well, first of all, the story is...
Shut up, Batya. Someone needs to honestly check if Hegseth was drunk when giving these orders. He clearly still has a drinking problem. So guys, remember how it's been a bit of a gray area when it comes to bombing these boats with supposed drugs on them that has never been verified, right? A bit of a gray area there. I mean, but this, it's literally textbook. Literally the example that they give in the military textbook for war operations. If a boat is incapacitated or unable to function anymore, you are not allowed to hit them again just to kill the people on board. That is a war crime. That is just straight up murder. Like, I mean, this is the U.S. military. If I'm honest, I doubt anyone goes to jail for this. I don't know. It just makes sense with these people. If you have, it just, nothing ever makes sense with these people. If you have them alive, right? You blew up the boat, whatever, it was incapacitated. Why not capture them and question them? I don't get that. Why would you just blow it up and kill those people? Get more info, put them on trial and in jail if you really cared about the drug trade. We all know this is not about drugs. Why in the hell would you just murder them? Unless you're just purposely trying to antagonize a war with Venezuela. It's just so obvious what they're doing. They don't want to bring them in for due process and interrogate them because this is not about drugs. They don't care about that.
Has been massively misreported. So you have actual headlines saying that Hegseth gave the order for the second hit. That wasn't in the initial Washington Post article, which claimed that following, by hearsay, somebody claimed to have heard Hegseth say, we have to kill everybody. Therefore, the admiral gave the second hit. So I just want to clear that up. I think that's why Hegseth wrote the tweet, is to just correct the record. But what I don't understand is it is the Secretary of State's right to determine who is a terrorist and who isn't. The Secretary of State answers to the executive branch. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has determined that these boats are carrying terrorists, which makes the attacks on them legal. And the only question is whether that boat was disabled or whether it was destroyed. If it was destroyed, how are there still live people clinging to it? And if it was only disabled, let me just finish the point, then it was still a threat, meaning it was still a legitimate target. So I'm very confused. And by the way, I've spoken to a lot of veterans today who are also very confused by all of this bipartisan outrage.
Good thing we have a military lawyer.
Baya, you are literally always confused because the voices in your head are as dumb as you are. Stop speaking to them. They're stupid. Like, it's like a car, guys, being totaled. Like, you effing idiot. It could be even destroyed, smashed, but the people inside are still alive. That happens sometimes, right? Like, damn, she's dumb. I mean, I call her Baya the brainless for a reason, but Jesus, the truth is she's just a hack, a grifter, right? She's just going to defend anything Trump does, anything Republicans do.
I just responded to two things. First, I would say to your point about, who gave this order, what the Washington Post article said, I think that's precisely why we need the Senate and the House to do what they're supposed to do. Have oversight, have investigations.
I totally agree.
Let's figure it out.
I want more information as well.
And second, on the point of the Secretary of State making it something a designated terrorist organization, that actually does not enable you to lethally target somebody. Naming somebody on the Secretary of State's list of foreign terrorist organizations actually only does, serious things. You can sanction people who are members of DTOs or FTOs. You can ban them from immigrating to the United States. You can actually criminally prosecute people who give them support, material support to terrorism. But it does not enable you to lethally target them. Yes, many DTOs and FTOs end up being organizations that we target abroad, but that's subject to congressional authorization and the laws of armed conflict when we see them abroad.
So you are in a dispute with the administration about that, which is totally fine.
Precisely.
Yes, okay, so,
yes.
yes. So, but I am not. I think that they have that authority, so they have not been challenged yet in any significant way, neither by Congress nor by the court. And so obviously, you're deciding with that.
I'll let you get in, but I don't want us to lose the point here. The question is actually not whether or not this was a legitimate target. I think there's dispute about that, but that's not what we're disputing. The question is whether it is legal, according to our rules of engagement and the laws of armed conflict that we abide by, to strike a target a second time when the target doesn't appear to pose a threat or is surrendering. That is the part that I think is in dispute, and that's not a question of whether they were terrorists or not. Even if they were terrorists, that might very well be illegal.
I think we should take a step back, because the only reason we know about this is because obviously somebody involved in that operation was uncomfortable with what was happening.
Yeah.
And that's how the Washington Post found out about it. Somebody leaked this to a reporter. People are not happy with Hegseth's leadership at the department. People are not happy with some of the things that the military is being ordered to do, whether it's the SEAL team, whether it's CENTCOM, whether it's... and I think that we have to pay attention to the fact that this isn't coming from some random reporter who was on the boat with them. This is coming from an internal source who is unhappy with the leadership of the administration.
To that point, the Washington Post had a story tonight that this is a quote from a military official. This is Protect Pete bullshit, that source said. One official said of Levitt's statement, it's throwing us, the service members, under the bus.
Right. I think it's going to be hard for this guy to
there is clearly not just whatever happened in that strike, but the cleanup from the White House is causing a lot of consternation.
Yeah, well, one thing I would note is
Shut up, Stuffer wife. The 8 Democrats, guys, must be thinking to themselves that made that video about not doing illegal orders. They must have think to themselves, told you not to F around. Like, they hit it right on the head. How long ago was that? It was like about a week ago where they said you would be punished or held accountable for any illegal orders taken. It does make sense now why Trump and by extension his little puppet Republicans and these pundits all freaked out when Democrats made that video. They effing knew this day was coming. Hegseth would give illegal orders at some point. It just didn't make sense why it angered them so much just to tell the military, hey, don't take illegal orders. If this order is illegal, you will be held accountable for that. And they absolutely freaked out. It's very odd as to why. And bingo. In just about a week, look what happens. I want to hear from all those idiots saying that the Dems, they were treasonous and that they're seditionists and that they should be effing killed for it. These idiots on the right were calling them the seditionist 6 or 8, something like that. Like, where are they? Come out wherever you are, you little shits. Un-effing believable.
lawmaker you played started their thought by saying, if this is true. And the fact of the matter is there is a lot in dispute tonight. We don't know the answers to everything. And Batya raised an important point that there is a difference between disabling a boat and destroying it. If it was only disabled under the laws of war, actually, they would have potentially been able to make that a mission, a military target. But I think a couple important points to make here more generally is, it's interesting to hear the media talking about this breathlessly for hours and hours when, Biden or Obama drone striked. The only thing that needed to happen was John Kirby would go on TV and say, oh, we made a mistake. We're learning from it. And nobody batted an eye. And yet now this has become the biggest,
It's
story,
actually
though.
not true that no one batted an eye at
though.
Obama's highly controversial drone strikes. That's the first thing.
No, and in fact, in the al-Awlaki strike, which was probably one of his most controversial, the legal opinion supporting that strike was fully disclosed at some point. And I think that's what needs to happen here. We need to see the legal opinions.
But I think the bigger story, though,
strikes.
is the average Trump voter looks at this and they think, why is the media breathlessly covering narco-terrorists and drug traffickers when the average American looks at this and thinks, oh, Donald Trump is actually
what I would say to the average
border.
Trump voter is
an
that,
idiot.
we have rules of engagement in the world that are not there to protect narco-terrorists. They're there to protect American soldiers in combat. And so it's super important for people who, I'm sure a lot of Trump supporters who have loved ones who are going out in armed conflicts to know that when they are engaged.
Abby, look at her. She's dead inside. She doesn't care about soldiers engaged in what kind of danger they'll be in. Look at her. You see any emotions in those eyes? She's dead inside. That's why I call her the stepper wife, MAGA robot.
By an enemy, that enemy, if they are not adhering to rules of war, are held responsible for those violations. And that, if they are adhering to rules of war, if they are struck in an attack and then they've survived, there are rules about what happens to them. They don't get just assassinated on the battlefield if they weren't taken out in the initial strike. So that's why it matters. It matters to Trump voters. It matters to Biden voters. It also matters to the United States' credibility in the world, because this isn't just, look, we don't even know who these people were. We don't know what drugs they were carrying. It's not about that. It's about whether or not we operate by any rules at all.
Absolutely. And I think that's the real challenge here, because it's an irony, if not hypocrisy, to see both White House and Congress of both parties all of a sudden full of this moral energy when international law has been stripped and disregarded. Human rights have been stripped and disregarded. We could talk about that in regard to Gaza, war crimes, what I consider genocide, but we can debate that, right? But same is true with executors. We just had the Prince of Saudi Arabia treated like a king. You got crimes against humanity taking place every day. Same is true in the history of the United States vis-a-vis Latin America. The Monroe Doctrine of 1823, we have intervened in 31 of the 33 countries down there. So you can imagine what they think of us. Military coups against democratic regimes, Guatemala, Gulag, Brazil, we can go on and on and on. So it's an irony to see all of a sudden both of these parties saying, we've got this moral authority concerned about what is a war crime and what isn't. Okay, let's debate that.
Well,
but the larger context is the war crimes have been shot through the history of the
But
country.
Abby, I
Margaret, a
think-
quick moment to respond.
Cornell, guys, he's like a library of information. He is so like on another level intellectually. But yeah, 31 out of 33 nations in Latin America. Like, what do you think that does on top of other than destabilizing those societies and those economies? Why do you think we have an immigration problem here? Of course, when we do things like this and we destabilize them, make them waste resources on random wars like this, what Trump is doing to Venezuela, what do you think that does? That's going to cause immigration. It makes those places even more uninhabitable. It's just so insane to me how the U.S. keeps doing the same thing and worrying about, oh my God, immigration, what do we do about it? Stop effing with these countries. Stop effing with them. If anything, try helping them. My God.
hear you.
We'll continue.
I will say I think it's encouraging that there is outrage over this. I think because there was the waters were intentionally muddied in terms of the legal authority for striking in the first place. And so the fact that we see something so brazen, firing on shipwrecked survivors of an initial strike, and that is agreed across the board to be illegal, I think it's encouraging that we can at least have bipartisan
If it's in
support for
morality,
that.
in the name of morality, not partisanship.
Sure,
As soon
absolutely.
as it's partisanship, you
Absolutely.
lose any
But I
moral
think that what's
context.
happening and why the rules of engagement, as Abby was just saying, are so important to the American military, that we can show that we uphold them, is because we need allies. We need allies. If we are going to war, even if we're going to war with Venezuela, we can't go in there alone. We need people who are going to come in with us, and they understand that the United States will follow the rules of engagement. We've already seen in the Caribbean that the United Kingdom and the Dutch have stopped sharing intelligence with us. And so we rarely go into conflicts by ourselves. We need allies, and our allies want to look to us and understand that we will follow the rules of engagement if they fight alongside us.
We're going to hit pause on this. And
She's right. You need allies. I say that all the time on all types of battlefronts. You always need allies. That's why these idiot Nazi right-wing movement, they're going to go to shit because they just hate everyone. But of course, guys, these cowards run to blame each other. Trump says he would not have done what Hegseth did with a second strike. Hegseth blames it on an admiral. Unbelievable leadership. Really good stuff, right? Shifting blame is a sign of strong leadership, no? Diablo. Hegseth himself multiple times said no more of this politically correct kind of engagement. We're going to kill. Like, then you have the MAGA robot, the Stepford wife there bringing up, of course, Obama. Like, it's just like, holy crap. Like, why even talk to some of these people? Obama hasn't been president for, I think, 10 years. Like, this is so insane to bring him up. And of course, Baya the brainless, just confused as ever and dumbfounded what this is all about. Her brain is truly made of fairy dust. There's nothing going on up there. Like, you really can't make this shit up. This is what happens when you put a drunk Fox News host that can't keep his hands to himself in charge of the effing military. What did you expect? Like, this is Republicans. This is the Republican-ran government. This is the kind of delivery. This is the kind of output you get when Republicans are in charge. I don't know how else to say it, guys. They're stupid. Republicans and conservatives are effing dumb. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. Really helps the channel. Really helps push the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.